Let me know when the recording starts. Running? Perfect. Oops. Here it is. Welcome everybody. Welcome to my webinar. Broadcasting live from Mexico City. Here is me, myself, Alberto Alvarado. Go and subscribe to my YouTube free channel. There in YouTube, you in the search box, you type iiivb Trading Room channel as it is here. This will show up. You click subscribe. This channel is becoming more active every time, so I suggest you to don't miss none of the action. So subscribe there. Well, today, wait a second because my computer is slowing down. I don't know what's happening. Hope this thing won't crash. Okay, well, we have tons of things to talk about. Let me take another screenshot just now to close my J4X because apparently that is causing the lag. Oh, okay, apparently there it is. Okay, yeah. Well, what we're going to review today is, of course, my performance in the contest. But I want to explain a little bit what happened, the trades that I end up eventually taking on Friday, why I did, even though I commented to all of you that by no means to leave any kind of trade open during the weekend. I did, not in my live accounts, of course, but in the trading demo account, and they end up being correct. So we're going to review that. There's one specific very interesting stuff that happened Friday just before Donald Trump's swearing in as president. And I believe that's one signal. Interesting. I'm going to develop that idea in depth in some minutes. I want to go step by step. Well, first of all, let's review my performance in the contest. Where, as you can see, this is me myself. I am now in 18th place with $447,000 in equity. Okay. Well, just check it out. I have to close this, okay, just to have the reference here. Okay. This is how my equity looks like. Again, 54% maximum drawdown. This month's profit and loss, profitability, 300% and some. Demo subscribers, 9 so far, so I believe that is good. And this is the equity curve. I'm not going to explain the same stuff. You can go to the other webinars. How I explain not even having almost a 60% drawdown. That doesn't mean that necessarily you lost the competition. You just have to know what you're doing and to keep up with the plan and to plan your trades, trade your plans, etc. Be aware of different situations in the markets, trying to not to settle with bad quality trades, but to look for the high quality ones, regardless if they end up being wrong or right. It's important that you make yourself the habit of only opening high quality trades, because if not, the bad quality ones most certainly will take out all your profits out of your pocket, and that's something that we don't want. So this is the equity curve, how this looks like. As you can see, we have a very high jump after Donald Trump's election, I'm going to explain overall this spike in my equity cure. This is the statistics. Total PIP points gained 564. Most profitable trade, the equivalent of 200 PIP in euro dollar one. Worst trade minus 112. Average PIP point gain on positive position 77, and in the negative 53. So now you can see that this is the 1.5 risk reward at the end for real. Again, for more information, go to the previous webinars that I explain exactly what I mean. Numbers of trades taken so far, 31. The average position size, 2,800,000. This is more or less the same, 20 hours in average trade lifespan. Average drawdown, this has been reduced dramatically, 18.22%. So as you can see, the maximum, this is not just already far from the maximum, but it keeps up reducing every time. The conditional orders, 100%, and the win-loss ratio, 55%, so this has nothing to do. I was reviewing some other trader contest accounts, and yes, some of them have the 75 positive trades. I just want to clarify something. Of course, that can happen. There are people that are very good at this, that they can, I don't know if for long term or short term, keep with the 70, 75, even 80%. When I say that the average in the long term is meaning decades, because there will be some trading conditions you understand better than others, and of course the ones that you understand better than others are the ones that you will keep with the 80, 85, 75%. The problem are not this kind of scenarios, but when you don't understand them in the same way, because there is when you maybe go to the 40% of the times you're right, etc., and at the end, in the very long term, it is more or less 50%. In this case, it's not long term. If this trading account for the contest, and I'm 55%, I feel happy with that. These are the two trades that I'm going, well, first, before that, this is important. I'm going to comment this. Of course, I'm not pointing out anybody, but I will be following closely the ending results of the competition when they declare the winners. Because for me, it's very, very hard not to see these two lines being like mirroring each other. I find it difficult that to happen randomly. I just want to see if, according to Katerina, this trader has won already several contests here, but I believe that this one is new. So maybe one of them is copycatting the other. The most likely thing is that maybe this one is copycatting this or something like that. Just because of these lines, I see them very closely related. Maybe this is pure coincidence. But well, I want to watch it closely when they declare the winners, just to see if at least if actually these are two very different traders with very different trading positions, not related to each other, because this is really eye-catching. Overall, the time spans where the counts didn't grow up is the things that really interest me the most. But well, hopefully these two traders are legit. At least I know this one is legit. Maybe this one is the one copycatting. Because yes, there is a way to copycat the trades. You go to the social contest, you subscribe to some trader, for example, I subscribe to this, and imagining that I don't have anything better to do with my life, I could just watch 24 hours the account and copycatting every trade. Something like that. So it's hard to believe that happens, but yes, it could happen. let's just see what happens at the end. Hopefully this is legit. But well, besides and regardless of that, look at this thing. It's 1 million in balance. This is 1,000% in profit. So even though maybe if this guy is cheating or not, it's amazing. Overall, because I don't know if this is real and somebody is copycatting somebody, well, even that, these numbers are really outstanding. So that is why I am so interested in knowing next month to see what Dukascopy has to say on these two traders. Because of course, if they are not cheating, for sure next month I will be in the social contest copying these traders for that social contest, not my trader contest. I am very committed into only opening trades of my own, of my, let's say, property. I don't like to copy other trades. So let's just check this out in some weeks. This is how the standings look like. Again, the number 1, the number 2, 3, etc. Here have the positions, the balances, etc. And so in other webinars, I explained exactly what all these mean. And I'm in 18th position. So yeah, I cannot say that I am not happy. For the first time, I am taking this seriously, and yes, it has paid off. So yeah, I feel happy with this. I really don't know if I'm going to open some other trades during the month, because since my very objective is to keep an outstanding performance in the signal trader Grand Prix, that are the 6-month and 12-month base prices, you need to keep steady profits instead of maybe winning 1,000% 1 month and breaking the account and blowing up the account next month. Maybe yeah, since I have never considered this trading contest seriously, of course, when you look at my 6-month and 12-month performance, it's horrible. So with this one, at least the 6-month statistics, I am already in profit, and in the 12, I am just about to break even there. So maybe it's a good choice just to leave it here, unless I find something interesting. Yes, what I'm going to talk about in the next minutes, it's very interesting, and maybe it will open a lot of trading possibilities. Here are my trades Friday. Were closed some hours ago. I opened a long cable. In this case was 5 million. And Mexican dollar versus Mexican peso, I sold, I shorted it, 5 million. This ended up being closed at 101 pip, and this 5,516 pip. Well, I'm going to explain this in the charts. Why I'm giving you all this context? Well, because if not, it's not going to be understandable at all. First of all, this is the Mexican peso. Something very interesting happened just before, like 2 hours, 1 hour before Donald Trump swearing in as president. In Bloomberg, it was interviewed, if I am not wrong, a leader, one important leader of the Republican Party, if I'm not wrong, in the I just forgot this, the Senate, I believe, or the other camera, I don't remember. When this guy was asked about Donald Trumponomics, for the first time since Donald Trump was elected, a representative figure of the United States Republican Party actually was outspoken on Donald Trump's economic policy. He said basically that, yeah, the United States may renegotiate whatever that it is in its best interest, but that the president will have to understand that this takes time, that you cannot shift the ship in all of a sudden, and that any change will have to consider all the integration that is ongoing in the region. And bang, that is exactly the kind of information that switched it all, in my opinion. Immediately when I listened to this guy talking, I immediately turned on the trading contest account. My live accounts, no, because I don't like to trade under this kind of uncertainties with live money. Why? Well, for the first time, apparently, and I will read up text to quote the exact post that I made in the trading contest blog, traders blog, for Sunday Post. Here it says, after some comments on Trump's ideas by an important Republican politician, the markets reacted unfavorably on the USD. This continued the rest of Friday, and Monday is apparently still supporting this movement. Okay. This was the first time something like this openly happened since Trump started the presidential career. This should indicate that resistance to Trump's projects may come from the very inside of the Republican Party. At least, that is how I read that information. Because the markets are so confused because apparently Donald Trump was promising a lot of stuff, and there was really not anybody saying and being outspoken inside the Republican Party on his Trumponomics just some hours before. So I said this signals that the resistance is the opposition may come from the very inside of the Republican Party. Meaning that if most of the Democrats are showing already what they think on Donald Trump's winning the presidency, barely some Democrats were in his ceremony, you can expect that most part of Democrats will do whatever it takes to block whatever kind of nonsense propositions and projects by this guy. So it would only require a small part of Republicans to really boycott and sabotage anything that he wants to do that requires authorization of this other power. If you notice, the speech on Donald Trump is like if he hasn't differentiated that actually he's now the president. That means behaving institutional, that he has a position that he needs to respect, and the first thing is avoiding engaging into stupid comments and situations like commenting on the protests and taking it like if it was a popularity contest and a reality show. Unfortunately, Donald Trump is showing that for him, he's still in the reality presidential show. But what I do believe why this speech was so aggressive, because I have few times seen how fast a president puts against himself the whole political power of a country. In less than 20 minutes, Donald Trump just did that. He started saying that pretty much that all the politicians were garbage, that they might be. But when you need them to support your vision, you cannot say that unless you're a real populist leader. But what I mean with this, only people like Hugo Chavez that have 80% of popular support can aggressively speak on anybody, any power. The Chamber of Deputies, the Chamber of Senators, whatever. Because you know that the people is with you. And even if they don't like your propositions, and maybe they wouldn't support your crazy ideas, there's a strong pressure when you, as president, you do have that complete popular and unconditional support of more than 70% of population. It's pretty much impossible that all the institutions could block you because the social weight is so big that they just cannot do that. And unless you are this kind of leader, and unless you have this kind of support of at least 70% of the population, like, let's put this example, Hugo Chavez, is the only way you can do what Donald Trump did, to spit on the face of all the politicians. When you have less than 50% of the absolute vote, this guy won because of the technicism of the United States electoral system. He won, that's a fact, and nobody discusses that. But what it's in between the lines is that he, in fact, didn't win by absolute majority. So doing this is a complete suicide, because you cannot spit on the face of all the political powers when you don't have at least 70% of the population support. I believe that this latest speech by Donald Trump is because he knows himself isolated already. He knows he is alone already. By these comments by this leader, if I'm not wrong, was from the Senate, the message was clear to Donald Trump and to the markets. And the markets read it accurately. That is why they reacted this way. Bearish on dollar. So what I believe that Donald Trump did is, okay, now my own party, Republican Party, is telling me that I won't do whatever I want. Then he switched the speech. He increased the bet like any kind of addicted to gambling, doubling every hand. And now he's desperately trying to win even the support of the ones that didn't vote for him. Because his speech was addressing all the population, not the ones that voted against him or pro him. So my reading is this: Donald Trump knows he's already isolated, that he cannot do pretty much nothing what he wants that requires approval of the Senate. So he wants to gain popular support of everybody. I wish him luck with that, because spitting shit 2 years in presidential careers, pointing out, being aggressive, being a macho, being all the show that he made to win, actually those things have consequences. And they won't disappear just because he switched a speech of 20 minutes. So I really do believe that the markets realized that actually we are in less risk than previously thought. Because, again, since it was 1 hour before this guy swearing in, a Republican that has like a very important position, outspoken, said, bottom line, this guy will have to realize that things need to be held between some limits of reality. And that is why I believe that Donald Trump seemed so angry at his swearing in, so aggressive. He said something interesting. He was addressing the military. He was addressing the police. He didn't never ever mention the equilibrium of power in the United States that will be the guardian of the United States forsake. Right? That is because of something. I believe that he knows he's isolated. Again, I'm repeating that because this is very important. This switches everything, guys and girls. This switches everything. And now, this was like a threat, you know, like I am addressing the police and the military that they will protect us. It is like, what the hell you're pretending to say, Trump? For me, is clear. It's crystal clear. This guy will be put in check since the very beginning. This is going to be very interesting. Donald Trump wants to meet this stupid Mexican president that we have here to renegotiate the NAFTA agreement, like if it was that easy, just him sitting down and settling in 2-3 hours. No, dude. This thing doesn't go that way. This takes time. This needs to go through the approval of each country's cameras. This is not something that you sit down and you say, I'm just tired of the NAFTA agreement. I will get rid of it. But now he will try. Now that he knows he's isolated, he will try to play even more aggressive. This is like a poker player that is losing. And he just started his presidency. And he's already playing like if he's losing. Now he will try to push the Mexican president and even the Canadian to accept and to come to the Senate saying, I solved the problem, and if you don't approve this, you're against the United States. That will be the speech of him. I remember clearly that after the 2008 crisis, there was a thing that needed to be approved by the Senate. I don't remember exactly what. One of these reforms of Obama. And it just took, in the speech of the Democrat that was explaining or something this stuff in the Senate, he said something like, we don't have to thank anything to the Republicans, something like that. And you know what happened? In that day, that reform that was urgent didn't pass. Just because of that. Just because of the lack of humbleness of accepting that the Republicans actually helped in the negotiations. It just took that. Now imagine a guy that just spit on the face of every politician and ex-president and everybody in power of the United States. Now imagine how difficult they can make Trump's presidency life. These are the 15-minute charts. Okay. This is the Mexican peso. You see this? This is where exactly that happened. This thing that I am talking to you about. I turn on the Forex, this trading account, and I shorted here. Look what happened. These were the first words of Donald Trump's speech. Overall, when we was saying that pretty much that he was going to close the borders, blah, blah, blah. And look, continue moving down, down, down. A lot of people are like really not being able to explain this. This has nonsense. While he is confirming his radical approach, why in the hell then Mexican peso gained terrain? Wanted to check this out. Do you remember that I was commenting that Donald Trump didn't know it, but he ended up doing a huge favor to the UK because Prime Minister May of the UK, days before, Donald Trump swearing in, dissipated all the doubts that at least if Brexit is going to happen or not and what kind of Brexit we will have. It is clear it's going to be a hard one, that's it. And then the pound reacted positively. Do you remember that? But I went here explaining that this is evidence of the maturity of UK democracy, blah blah blah. You know that I like a lot the UK culture, the UK political system. I am pro-Brexit because simply you know the reasons. Okay. He ends. I said that was going to open huge opportunities in the pound. Do you remember? Because now, thanks to this, the people that are fearful of maybe investing in the United States because they really don't know how competitiveness will be hurt by these approaches by Donald Trump, with this latest speech by Prime Minister May, it is like a kind of a safe haven to go to UK. I hope you remember that. Because immediately when I heard this, I said, okay, firstly, the risks of the United States wanting to flip over the ship in 1-2 years, completely the direction, depended that the whole Republican Party support him to really have leverage on that absolute majority. This comment 1 hour before Donald Trump swearing in is sending a message. That is not going to be that easy for Donald Trump, not even having majority of the Republican Party. And this is a major challenge. It is only required a small part of Republicans to block and sabotage every crazy idea of this guy that requires approval. I said that will have a positive effect on peso. Look at this. I shorted here. Boom. Moving down, down, down. I took a huge risk keeping these trades open during the weekend. Firstly, because it's demo account. In live accounts, I didn't even open any trade. I was commenting, don't by any means leave any kind of trade open. I decided to run the risk. Again, demo account, and because it had already a huge drop. Actually, the Mexican peso was the one that gained the most on Friday. And my original take profit target here was 120.80, but I decided to close it at 121.50 just an hour after the markets open. Look, the market stabilized here. So from here to here, you can tell me where I was in a loss? Never ever. This is the pound. I open a long trade here. Why? Even though that could mean that maybe a lot of people would prefer them to invest in the United States because maybe they see that the Senate will block a lot of crazy stuff. There's still one factor of uncertainty that is based on this bully tempered president called Donald Trump. So even though this loses a little bit the fear, the apprehension of what's next, there's still some risk. Holding longs on pound, even though by itself would have worked as a short-term safe haven, having this support that could counterweight all this nonsense like Donald Trump in the United States will have an eventually catalysm on steroids support on the pound. I said, okay, maybe we could have a bullish movement on cable, a bullish movement on peso. The most likely thing is that the pound will be less likely to win too much. But the peso, I thought it was going to be a great winner. It ended up happening that way. But the pound, this is at the exact same moment this guy was speaking, I longed here. Look at this. I guess I was in red like, I don't know, 30 minutes. Well, the trade was here, the price was here, and it ended up moving up. I decided to close it at the 124. But look at this. even after it continued moving up. If I am not wrong now, we should be what is this? Let me see. Here it is. I closed it at the 124 and we just got to the 124.70. Okay. Why I'm telling you this? Even though it's not recommendable to trade live money on this kind of situations, you can actually do it if you know how to manage your risks. I was saying before and during my whole webinar career that being a trader is being aware of at least a decent amount of overall information that what is happening in the world. Economics, geopolitics, all that. Climate change, all that. But one part of being a real trader is that you start chasing mice in your head. You become like a cat, and the mouses are the ideas in your head, and you're constantly chasing them, trying to find that little extra edge, that little extra combination of factors that could give you an insight. Since Donald Trump won, I was considering that as long as we don't receive at least one leader, representative leader by the Republican Party, at least showing up some kind of conservative attitude. I mean, those are the conservatives. This guy is simply representing nobody. This guy is not representing the conservatives, and is for certainly not representing the liberals. This guy is an exception in the rule. So it is going to be very difficult that he fits in the system. He is not the system. He doesn't have an idea how that system is. He's a billionaire. By the way, not a good performing one. Since 2008 now, a lot of billionaires, including the Mexican Carlos Slim, has done way better than this guy. And that is because of one reason. Those guys are better understanding the current situation of things and profit from them. And if this guy is underperforming, it's because of a reason. Because he's not up to the new challenges and new understanding of their current circumstances. The problem is apparently this is like a revenge attitude. It's like if he's trying to compensate something. Maybe that fact that he's not that good and he wants then to switch the world, to fix his vision of businesses, to justify that he was always right. But no, that is not the case. He wants to change the rules that those fit in his mindset, not he trying to adapt to the world. This is like losing in the market, being a retail trader, and saying that the markets are wrong, that you are right even if you lost. This is the same attitude. He's losing in this billionaire's game, and he is trying to argument that all others and the market is wrong. I mean, yes, capitalism is a huge pyramidal scheme. Yes, that is true. But anyways, there are billionaires that are outperforming this guy. So I was coming back to the original idea. Since he won, I was like, why in the hell nobody of the Republican Party is really showing, speaking outspoken? They were actually doing the opposite, trying to reconcile with him. Some Republican elements that said that they were not going to support him were shaking hands after that. And I was saying, oh, that is why the markets got really nervous. Because they said if he had a crazy idea of a United States economy suicide, the Republicans will support him. So since that moment, I was looking for, when I had the chance to know, a Republican said this, a Republican that, trying to find between the lines maybe some kind of message that they were actually played responsibly, counterweighting the crazy stuff of this guy. and that happened 1 hour before. And I can swear that that is the reason why this guy was so angry. So angry. Because at the very first steps of he being president, even the Republicans are starting showing that they are not going to support the nonsense. So I was trying to figure out, well, if that happens at some moment, then what could happen? And I start figuring out, okay, in case of the Mexican peso, I was sure that if something like that happened, that just happened 1 hour before, that should have a release effect on peso. After Brexit, the speech by Ms. May, I included that new scenario of being bullish on pound on, okay, what could happen. So I had foreseen, I didn't have any kind of certainty that this could happen. Actually, I was surprised. When I was listening to this guy, I couldn't believe it. Because I said, oh my God, this is happening. Actually, the Republicans are stating, we're not going to support the garbage, the nonsense. But then is when my previous scenarios, I took the ones that I planned for such situation. I said, longing peso, longing pound. In other words, shorting dollar. But I don't know how the dollar performed in other currencies, but at least in this case, I knew, of course, the most deteriorated after Donald Trump being elected president. The most deteriorated was the Mexican peso. So, if we had some release information, the most likely thing is that then the peso would be the best performing one, and that happened. All this comes to one single point. No, I didn't have a crystal ball. I didn't foresee that a Republican member was going to say that 1 hour before. No. You need to have several plans in your head. And I've been saying that for long during the webinars. Being a trader is kind of being a sort of paranoid. With some luck, a healthy paranoid. Because you have to be thinking of ghostly scenarios, and maybe 99% of those will never ever happen. But you need to be prepared. Like, for example, of course I didn't want the Third World War to start, but what I said up in some webinar. I started watching gold because it's the only thing that maybe could let me believe maybe when something is irreversible. So being able, and this is a skill that maybe is one of the toughest, to try to figure out even this kind of stuff that are very delicate, because it comes at times that when you start thinking of a Third World War so often, that hurts emotions. Or they can have the opposite effect of reducing the sensitivity of yourself. Because you need to put completely your emotions aside to think objectively. That is a radical example that I, in fact, did. Fortunately, tensions were kind of reduced, etc. But what happened days before Obama leaving? The tanks were put on Poland. That's not a good thing. But you need to try to foresee what could happen if, in this case, was a most Iran situation, like, okay, if a Republican comes and says what everybody wants the Republicans to come out and outspoke against this guy. And that happened. So immediately, at those times, you don't have time to think. That is the point. Trading is about trying to foresee what is going to happen. Half of the times you're wrong, half of the times you're right. But it depends on how you configure those scenarios in your head. You will know how to react. This is like a training in the military or in the martial arts. You are trained to, when a situation comes, You simply react. You know how to react. You don't have time to think. If you think, you're doomed. You need to know how to react. That is training. Put a layer over that fear trigger that will be at a dangerous situation. Build up a layer above it that would put that emotion in control, and you know exactly what to do. Trading is the same. At that very moment, I just took from my cabinets, archives in my head, that dusty document that said, what would I do if a Republican comes and said something like this? I took that archive, I opened it, and I said, long peso, long pound. That's what I did. At those times, you need to react quickly. And it's not that easy. If you go to the news, or at least here in Mexico, it's like Donald Trump just said that he was going to build that wall again, that he's going to completely maybe destroy the NAFTA agreement if the only benefited maybe is only the United States, something like that. And the peso gained territory. My idea is because of this. The markets are reading that Donald Trump is already in stalemate. So that brings certainty to the markets by getting rid of uncertainty. It is not the same than what happened in the UK. One thing is dissipating risk by knowing that Donald Trump is in check, by reducing uncertainty. That could be read as an increase of certainty, but it's a reduction of uncertainty. And what happened in the UK? It's a complete dissipation of uncertainty by giving a clear, this is going to happen. So that is why I was surprised, actually, that I opened a trade during Donald Trump's inaugural speech, because I made my mind, I'm not going to open it. But these kind of things are the ones that you need to classify in your mind. What kind of scenarios merit that you open a trade? For example, if markets had been opened when the 9/11 happened, of course you know, or at least it's supposed that if you're a trader, you know what to do. You know that no matter what happens, you simply have at that moment to close the higher risk things, period. Or even to short everything on long dollar, even though the country on attack was the United States dollar. Okay. Somebody long gold, etc. So all these things, there are like that super emergency scenarios that merits that you can open a trade. In that archive in my mind of what I should do if the Republican comes and says something against Donald Trump that could signal that the Republican Party is having second thoughts on supporting all the nonsense, it was a clear idea. In any case that happened, my stop loss on those trades would be like, let's say in a case of the pound, in the lowest swing, previous the movement, in this case buying it. My stop loss was at, I believe it was at 122 or something. So all these things need to be prepared beforehand in your head in order for you to know how to trade. But overall, if you decide to trade these sort of things, the first thing that you need to picture in your mind before anything can happen are the risks. In this case, my risks, stop loss, yes, but I have a bigger one, the weekend. Am I really willing to run that risk? It is obvious that in my live accounts, I didn't believe so. I didn't open any trades in my live accounts. Okay. But in this one, I was like in 28th position, I believe, yes, on Friday something, 22nd, I believe. And I said, okay, easily, if I have a Monday gap against me, I could drop to the 100 position easily. So I said, okay, yes, I'm willing to run it because it's demo. And because in this quality checking list of the trades that you are willing to open, do you remember that I tell you need to have like a checklist, let's say 10 elements. Every time you open a trade, you need to have a minimum acceptable checklist. And when a minimum is not preserved, it's time to close the trade, to grab losses or whatever you need to do. But in this case, everything happened as I pictured it in my head, that I simply said it worth the risk. If this Republican leader hadn't said those precise words, I wouldn't have opened a trade. How I know I was right? The market immediately started reacting. Overall, in the Mexican peso, you remember that I told you before, several webinars before, if you really want to know what's going to happen on Donald Trump's free trade approach, you have to watch the Mexican peso. This immediately started selling off in that very moment. This is not coincidence. And when we had the toughest word said by Donald Trump, it just only was a selling opportunity. Retesting this and continued selling off. Selling off. Selling. This is amazing. Look at this. This is a 15-minute chart. This is not very reliable, but this it's 15 minutes. The volume here is this. So whoever did any kind of trade here actually helped to make the market continue going down. Basically, all the words, the markets on Friday completely ignored Donald Trump. And that is integrating a very, very attractive element for the markets. Uncertainty is not dissipating, of course not. Donald Trump is a guy that I've been saying here that is used to making things his way. There's another symbol. This dance after swearing in as president, the dance that he did with his wife. In case you don't know it, the song that he chose was Frank Sinatra's My Way. I love that song. But when you put that song in that scenario, you're sending a message to somebody. He's combative. He's aggressive. He's a bully. He's a spoiled child. Of course, it's not going to be easy. He's going to fight back. Of course, he's going to fight back. And now you will see that he will try desperately to get together even the ones that didn't vote for him, saying whatever it takes, because he knows that it's his only chance to have his ideas done, because he's isolated. This hour talking is just to justify markets simply ignored Donald Trump. Because if that didn't was that way, trust me, the result would have been very different. Just ignored him. The markets decided to ignore him and to listen to the Republican leader, because it is clear now that the real in-depth changes that Donald Trump wants to apply need Senate's approval. In practical results, volatility won't be ruled out, because no, volatility is here to stay for long. But what is going to be dissipating, or at least in control, in check, is fear. People will be less fearful to maybe invest a little bit in the United States. To say, I'm not running out with my money of the United States because this will take time. This is not going to be in a snap. All the changes, maybe they didn't even happen. So yeah, I never thought that was going to be the result of Donald Trump swearing in. And now, look how he reacted to women protesting against him. I'm not aware what they were using this pink cat ears, something like that. I'm not aware why, but I know that it was protesting against him, the women. Of course, women have a lot of things to protest against this guy because of his behavior. And imagine he is so desperate and he's so immature as a president that he just engaged into that. Imagine what will happen when Kim Jong-un in North Korea said something about the United States. He's going to go and face him and start making the alpha macho attitude, or what? It's really ridiculous, this guy. I had that little expectation that maybe when he got to the presidency, he started behaving institutional. Well, it's clear that this guy doesn't have an idea what that means. But trust me, somebody will teach him in the hard way what that means. And it's going to be the rest of the powers of the United States. Donald Trump is used to believe that he's always right, not because he's right, because he always put himself in a situation where nobody can tell him otherwise. This is going to be new for him, because for the first time he's going to face things that he won't be able to do even if he wants to. It's not that easy that he's going to come with this reality show attitude. You're fired. No, come on, guys. Chill out. You're used to believe that others are the competition to smash. The only way to win is to smash the competition. It's what he wants to do with Mexico. He wants to do with China. It's the only language that he understands. He doesn't understand the pure concept of equilibrium of power, of weights and counterweights. They are there for a reason, precisely avoid this kind of things that I want things done the way I want them, no matter what. So this is going to be a nightmare for this guy. Hopefully I am right. Hopefully the markets are reading this correctly along with me, and that we are sharing the same reasons. That apparently this is not going to be the end of a lot of things as we understand them, because it's not that easy. Having volatility in the markets, it's favorable for traders, yes, as long as this volatility is not 1% reflect of fear. Fear is what is, at least now, is on check. So yeah, we will stay and we will continue watching very closely the pound and peso opportunities, because in how I understand things, are going to be the two best performers for the next month or even years. Whether to the upside or downside, whatever. But yeah, because are the ones that are just in the best place to be the worst badly hit, or the most benefited. Here we have some comments. Karina, pussy hat. Ah, yes, it is called pussy hat. Feminist symbol. Oh, okay. Yeah, I find that hat lovely. I like it. but I didn't know the name of that or why they're using it. But yeah, you know what? This guy is so arrogant that I believe that he simply cannot understand how come all the world, everybody could not love him. So he's really having a hard time to understand how in the hell this could be really angry people at me because of my attitude. He would like to believe that they are paid people, that they are like artificial protests, just to avoid accepting that he could be a pain in the ass. So the problem with the ones that elected this guy, that voted for this guy, that I believe that these guys really tried very hard to ignore all his weaknesses as human. Because when you are in leadership position, the point you lead people is much more based on how you manage your flaws as a person than your virtues and talents. You can follow a smart man with no control, absolute no control of emotions. And that guy could lead you to the abyss. Maybe you could follow not the wisest of all, but maybe the one that knows how to check in his or her flaws as human, and you will be getting to a safe port at some point in somewhere. But at least you will have less chances of having your ship sink. With this guy, if the Senate and the other powers that are there precisely to avoid a bully to do whatever he wants, if it's not because of the equilibrium of powers, we could actually have the American society sinking. Because this guy is really narcissistic and neurotical. What could you expect the emotions that this guy could be able to transmit to people? Every time that he's on stage, on television, I can bet you that 50% at least of the Americans are getting very bad feelings, stressed. Do you think that's good for any kind of society? For none. So let's see what happens. I strongly believe that now the volatility stays that will open a lot of situations, because when you have fear outside of the equation, it's only volatility and not erraticness. Keep up with watching closely the pound, keep up watching the Mexican peso. In any case that you believe is something exotic, that you don't want to have any kind of relationship with the Mexican peso, think twice. And I just showed you why. By far, the people that longed Mexican peso like me in Friday won a lot of money. It was the best performer. Why? Because it was a worst performer for a long time thanks to Donald Trump beside other factors. But well, Donald Trump is one important factor. Okay. Here it says, have you seen that Google station that automatically switches all Trump pictures on the internet with pics of kittens? Yes. I read it on I believe it was on Twitter, something like that. But well, I cannot do that because I need to see his face. You know, I've been commenting that body language is the most important thing in a politician. Body language is what, at that time, Bill Clinton showed to the world that he was lying. The body language. And this guy, even if it's disgusting to the eye, at least I believe it, all the gestures that he does are important to me. Because it gives me, that is what is giving me the reading, for example, that he just was so angry at the inaugurational ceremony, and that maybe the reason was what happened 1 hour before. So yeah, It would be nice just to ignore this guy, but it's impossible for us as traders. So I would like to thank everybody for showing up, all the guests for being around. I know it's Monday, it's a hard day. Overall, after the hangover of having Donald Trump elected, on markets are maybe kind of, or at least it was supposed to be them to be kind of doubtful. Apparently that is not the case. Last time I checked, the pound was getting closer to the 124. So don't be surprised if this continues moving up. So I would like to thank Irina, of course, as always, for hosting the webinar, and everybody for showing up. Just a reminder, remember that tomorrow I will be broadcasting as always. Okay? Thanks to you, Katerina, for hosting. And thanks everybody for showing up. And remember to trade safe, be safe, and bye-bye.